Alright, hi guys. In this video I'm going to be covering AP Computer Science Chapter 7, which is about arrays. To start with, what is an array? An array is an object that contains data of the same type, whether it be primitive data or objects of a class, in consecutive memory locations that have the same name. Each location has a position known as a subscript or an index. Keep this in mind, it might come in the exam if they ask what another name for an index is. So basically, an array is a list of values that are of the same type. A list of integers, a list of booleans, a list of strings, a list of objects, a list of doubles, but they have to be the same type. So how do you declare an array? So for one-dimensional arrays, it's pretty simple. Type, two square brackets with nothing in between, and then you put the name, as long as it's not a reserved word, it's fine, equal to, new, and then you put the same type, open square bracket, you put the length in, close square bracket, semicolon. Or, if you want to declare it with values, this is how you declare an array with no values. Every value will be set to a default value. If you want to declare it with values, type, once again, square brackets, name is equal to, and then you open curly braces and put items separated by commas that must be of this type that you declared here. So all items must be of the same type. Once an array is created, the size cannot change. If you create an array of length 10, it's going to stay length 10 no matter what. If you want to add an extra value, you just have to make a new array. So for an example of declaring a one-dimensional array, double square brackets numbers equals new double and then in square brackets 10, which means that the length of the array is going to be 10 items, which are doubles. This creates an array containing 10 doubles indexed from 0 to 9. The index of items in an array, it starts from 0 and it goes to the length of the array minus 1. So here, in this case, it's from 0 to 9 since the length of the array is 10. Another example, string double square brackets words is new string 7. This creates an array containing 7 strings indexed from 0 to 6. Or if you want to declare an array with actual values, int double square brackets, the name equal to curly brackets, and then you put your values, close the curly brackets, and semicolon. This is an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 integers, which are going to be indexed from 0 to 4. Another example, string square brackets words is equal to curly brackets, and then you put your stuff in there, close curly brackets, semicolon, and this is of length 4, so the items are going to be indexed from 0 to 3. So that's how you declare an array, a one-dimensional array, that is. But if an array is declared without values, each index in the array will be set to a default value. That is, if you choose to use this method to declare it. So for integers, this value is 0. For doubles, this value is 0.0. For strings, this value is null, which is two quotation marks with nothing in between, no space between the quotes. For booleans, this value is false. Right. So now, how do we declare two-dimensional or 2D arrays? So it's the same general concept. Type, and then double square brackets like this. Name is equal to new type, and then you're going to have double square brackets again. This one's going to have the number of rows, this one's going to have the number of columns. You can also declare a 2D array with values like this. Notice how you have your first set of curly braces, then you have curly braces inside. This whole thing, this is one row, and this is another row. So this is a row, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And whenever you declare a 2D array like this, all the rows must be of the same size. So to help you understand it better, this is what it looks like in a table format. A, B, C, D, that's the first row, and E, F, G, H, that's the second row. Remember that the index always starts from 0, so the first row's index is 0 and the second row's index is 1. Same thing for the columns, the fourth is 3 and the first is 0. Right. So to find the length of a 1D array, you use array name.length without the parenthesis. For strings, you would normally put these parentheses at the end, but for arrays, you don't put them. So for example, let's say we defined an integer array that has these values. If you want to print the length, The output's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The output will be 6. For a 2D array, it's different. Array name.length will only return the number of rows. If you want to find the number of columns, you have to do array name 0.length. Why 0? Because every two-dimensional array is going to have at least one row, but there's no guarantee that it's going to have a second row. So array name 1.length might return an array index out of bounds exception. If you try to do array name 3.length and the 2D array only has, let's say, 3 rows, the index of the last row is 2. So trying to do array name 3.length is going to return an array index out of bounds exception. So an example of what we just said, int numbers, it's initialized with some values, 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, 3 columns. This is what it looks like as a table. So if you do system.out.println numbers.length, it's going to give you the number of rows, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. The output will be 4. If you try to do numbers 0.length, it's going to give you the length of the first row, which is 1, 2, 3. The output will be 3, which is the length of the first row, aka the number of columns. Basically, you can treat every row as a one-dimensional array, and the 2D array is kind of a list of one-dimensional arrays, if that makes sense. So, to find the value in a certain position or index of a one-dimensional array, we simply do array name index in square brackets. So, for example, let's say we have this array initialized with these values. If we do my array square brackets 1, 0, 1, the output will be B. If we do 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the output will be E. And since 4 is the last index, if we try to do 5, it's going to give you an array index out of bounds exception. Since the last index is 4, we can't get something with index 5 because the last index is 4. So the first index of a one-dimensional array is 0, and the last index is array length minus 1. Remember that index always starts counting from 0. Length starts counting from 1, but index starts counting from 0. So finding the value of a certain position of a 2D array is different, though. We do array name, row index in square brackets, and then the column index. Remember, of course, that it starts from 0. So let's take this array that we covered in the last example, and we're going to represent it as a table again. So system.out.println numbers 0, 0. It means that we're going to go to the first row, first column, which is going to be 1, and we're going to print 1. Let's see, we try 2, 1. So third row, second column, the output is going to be 8. But if we try 3, 3, 3, fourth row, that's fine. But the last index of the column, the index of the last column is 2. So we can't do 3, 3. It's going to give you an array index out of bounds exception. All right. Now looping through an array, this can be done using a for loop. To access every value in a one-dimensional array, we can use a single for loop as shown. For int k is equal to 0, k is less than array name.length, k++, and then you put whatever your code is in between these two curly brackets. So here the value starts as k as 0, and k takes the value of every single index in the array from 0 to array name length minus 1, because the condition says that it must be less than array name.length, which means that if the length is 7, the last value k can take, and the for loop still runs, is when k is equal to 6, which is going to be the last index of the array in that case, since the length is 7. The variable doesn't have to be named k. You can do you can name it whatever you want. I just used k as an example. Alternatively, though, k can take the individual values in the array instead of their indexes like this. So for array type, so if the array is of strings, then k has to be a string, integers, k has to be an integer, etc. Colon, array name, open the brackets, code, close the brackets. This means that k is going to take every single value in the array, and the for loop is going to run as many times as the array has values, if that makes sense. So if the array has 6 values, the for loop is going to run 6 times. So To show an example of this working, we're going to declare an array here with the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For int k colon numbers, it means that k is going to start as 1 and go to 6. System.out.print k plus a space here. So that means that the first thing we're going to print is going to be 1 with a space, and then the for loop is going to loop again. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Then finally, when k is 6, it's going to print the last time with a space, and then nothing's going to happen. That's the end of the code. So the for loop will print every value in the array numbers in one line separated by a space each. For 2D arrays, again, it's different. To access each value in a 2D array, we need to use two for loops, one for the rows and one for the columns, something like this. So you need to have two variables. Again, doesn't really matter what they're called as long as they're not a reserved word. Just make sure that they're two separate variables. So int I is equal to 0. I is less than array name dot length. This is the one for the rows in this case. And inside it, int k is equal to 0. K is less than array name 0 dot length. So this one is for the columns. That one is for the rows. Then you put your code in here. So the variables don't have to be called I and k, but they should be two different variables. So to show an example of this code working, let's take the 2D integer array numbers again, the one that we defined here. So two for loops. For int I is equal to 0, I is less than numbers.length, numbers.length is 4, so I is less than 4, I plus plus. And then another for loop inside for k is equal to 0, k is less than number 0.length, k plus plus, so number 0.length 1, 2, 3, k is less than 3. System.out.print numbers I, k plus a space, and then after this for loop is terminated, we're going to switch to the next line. And this for loop is going to repeat for however many times it's going to run, which is 3 times, I believe. Sorry, 4 times. So let's see what the output's going to be. So we're going to start with I is equal to 0, k is equal to 0. So it's going to print numbers 0, 0, 1 with a space. I'm putting these dashes just as a demonstration that there's a space. There won't actually be a dash. And then k gets incremented 2, 3, and at that point k is equal to 2, and these instructions are executed. So then you increment k, it becomes 3, and you check the condition. Is 3 less than 3? No, 3 is equal to 3. So this for loop terminates, system.out.println, meaning we go to the next line, and then this for loop repeats again, this time I is equal to 1. So this repeats until I is equal to 3. It's going to repeat for the last time. Then I is going to increment to 4. The condition is going to be false, and the for loop is going to terminate. So the output is going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, new line. 4, 5, 6, new line. 7, 8, 9, new line. 0, 0, 0. So this code prints the values in every row, switches to a new line, and repeats for all the rows.